Hello friends, Namaskar. Myself is Dr. Soni. I am an advocate and a corporate lawyer. In today's class, we will discuss about the bail bonds. And apart from that, we will discuss the certain conditions to be fulfilled by the concerned accused person before having a release on the bail. So the topic is quite important, informative, and for which we will emphasize from section 484 of BNSS up to section 496 of BNSS. I know that the topic is too much lengthy. It is not possible to cover the entire topic in a single class. So if the time exceeds beyond 15 minutes in that scenario, I will take the another class and will try my best to conclude the entire scenario. Now directly I am coming on the topic. I request all of you to maintain a proper notebook so that you could maintain your recorded information. In case of trouble, you could easily encounter them without any panic or anxiety. Section 484 of BNSS says about the amount of bond and reduction thereof. Subsection 1 says that the amount of every bond executed under this chapter shall be fixed with due regard to the circumstances of the case. So, the basic emphasis on the circumstances of the case. And apart from that, the conditions regarding the bail amount should not be excessive. If it is excessive, arbitrary, in that scenario, it will infringe section 484 subsection 1 of BNSS. In that scenario, as per subsection 2, Honorable High Court or Court of Session may intervene and may direct that the bail required by the police official or magistrate be reduced. The said section correspond to section 440 of CRPC 1973. Now I am coming on subsequent section, that is section 485 of BNSS. It says about the bond of the accused and the sureties. It is entirely divided in 4 subsections. Subsection 1 says, before any person is released on bond or bail bond, a bond for such sum of money as a police official or the court, as a case may be, thinks fit, shall be executed by such person. But please be noted, the sum of money does not mean the actual amount of money, but basically it is the figure which is required to be mentioned in the personal bond or the concerned bail bond as per the direction of the concerned official. To be noted that, and when he is released on bond or bail bond by one or more than one sureties, in that scenario there might be a condition that such person shall attend at the time and place mentioned in the bond and shall continue so as to attend until otherwise directed by the official or by the court as a case may be. So if there is a condition to attend a particular place at a particular time, in that scenario, the concerned person so released is duty bound to comply with such condition, otherwise it will amount to infringement, and apart from that, adverse action can be taken against such person concerning the violation. As far as subsection 2 is concerned, it says where any condition is imposed for the release of the person on bail, the bond or bail bond shall also contain that condition. So if there is any condition specified in subsection 3 of section 480 of BNSS or section 483 subclause 1 of BNSS, in that scenario, it is required to be mentioned as per the protocol. As far as the clause number 3 is concerned, it says, if the case so require, the bond or bail bond shall bind the person to be released on bail to appear when called upon by the concerned High Court or Court of Session or other court. In that scenario, he is required to comply with that condition, and apart from that, there might be a condition to attend High Court or Court of Session or other court to answer the charge. In that scenario, the concerned person is duty bound to comply with the said condition. And as far as subsection 4 is concerned, it says that for the purpose of determining whether the sureties are fit or sufficient, the court may accept affidavits in proof of the facts contained therein regarding the sufficiency or fitness of the sureties, and apart from that, the court, if thinks fit, may either hold an inquiry itself or cause an inquiry to be made by the magistrate subordinate, and apart from that, the entire agenda is regarding the determination of the sufficiency or fitness of the concerned sureties. The said section corresponds to section 441 of CRPC. So basically we could say that section 485 of BNSS basically incorporates multiple conditions to be followed by the concerned accused released on bail, and apart from that, regarding the sufficiency or fitness of the concerned sureties, the court may adopt the process laid down in section 485 subclause 4 of BNSS. Now we are coming on section 486 of BNSS. It says every person standing surety to an accused person for the release on bail shall make a declaration, that is very much important to be noted, before the court as to the number of persons to whom he stood as surety, including the accused person, giving therein all relevant particulars. So basically the declaration is important. If there is no declaration in that scenario, there might be proceedings against the surety. In declaration, he has to specify about the number of persons concerning whom he has stood as surety. If he failed to specify, in that scenario, an adverse action might be taken because the said scenario would infringe section 486 of BNSS. Now we are coming on section 487 of BNSS. Basically, it is concerned with discharge from custody. Subsection 1 says, as soon as the bond or bail bond has been executed, means it is submitted and finally executed, the person for whose appearance it has been executed shall be released. When he is in jail, the court admitting him to bail shall issue an order of release to the officer in charge of jail, and such officer on receipt of the order shall release him. That is very much important, because after having the bail bond, it is required to be executed, and when it is submitted and duly accepted by the concerned court, the order of release is inter alia pronounced, is inter alia narrated, and finally the order is sent to the concerned official of jail so that the accused concerning whom the order is pronounced or dictated could be released on bail as per the condition of the concerned court. As far as subsection 2 is concerned, it says that nothing in this section, section 478 or section 480, shall be deemed to require the release of any person liable to be detained for some other matter other than that in respect of which the bond or bail bond was executed. So basically subsection 2 is concerned with the procedure, and apart from that we have to note down that the said section corresponds to section 442 of CRPC, and to understand subsection 2 we have to note down certain key facts. It says that nothing in this section means nothing contained in section 487, section 478 or section 480 shall be deemed to require the release of any person liable to be detained for some other matter other than that in respect of which the bond or bail bond was executed. So basically, if he is detained in any other matter, in that scenario he could not be released, because the said release as specified could not help the concerned accused person, because the concerned order is confined and concerned up to the extent of matter in which the bail bond or the consent bond is submitted and duly executed. Now we are coming on section 488 of BNSS, that simply says the power to order sufficient bail when that first taken is insufficient, if through mistake, fraud or otherwise insufficient sureties have been accepted, or if they afterward become insufficient, the court may issue a warrant of arrest directing that the person released on bail be brought before it, and may order him to find sufficient sureties, and on his failing to do so may commit him to jail. The said section corresponds to section 443 of CRPC. Basically we could say that if the consent surety found to be insufficient later on, the reason might be the acceptance of surety bond by mistake, fraud or otherwise. In that scenario, the court may issue the warrant of arrest, and inter alia may accord the opportunity to the concerned person accused of an offence, if released on bail, to submit the fresh and sufficient sureties, and in case he failed to do so, in that scenario he may be committed to jail. Now we are coming on section 489 of BNSS. Basically it is concerned with discharge of surety. It is one of the most important sections, because the said section corresponds to section 444 of CRPC 1973. It says that all or any sureties for the attendance or appearance of the person released on bail at any time apply to a magistrate to discharge the bond either in whole or as far as relate to the concerned applicant. So basically it is a right of the concerned surety to apply before the concerned magistrate with a request to discharge the surety bond. And apart from that, he may request the same to discharge in whole or so far as it relates to the concerned applicant. Subsection 2 says that on such application, the magistrate shall issue the warrant of arrest directing the person so released be brought before him. Subsection 3 says that on appearance of such person pursuant to the warrant or on his voluntary surrender, the magistrate shall direct the bond to be discharged either wholly or so far as it relates to the applicant and shall call upon the person to find other sufficient sureties, and in case they fail to do so, they might be committed to the consent jail. So basically, section 489 of BNSS is quite important. In case the surety want to discharge, he may apply as per the protocol of section 489 subclause 1 of BNSS. In that scenario, the concerned court is bound to follow the process as laid down in subsection 2 and subsection 3 of BNSS. Now we are coming on section 490 of BNSS. Basically, it is concerned with deposit insist of recognizance. It says that when any person is required by an official or by court to execute bond or bail bond, such court or officer may, except in the cases of bond for good behavior, permit him to deposit a sum of money or the government promissory note to such amount as the court or official thinks fit in lieu of execution of such bond. The section is quite important and having the practical application. For example, we inter alia applied for the bail and bail is inclined subject to execution of surety bond and surety is not available. In that scenario, we may request to the concerned official or to the concerned court to issue direction to deposit a sum of money or the government promissory note so that the condition regarding the deposit of surety bond could be parried in the particular case. In that scenario, section 490 of BNSS is quite helpful. But be noted, the said protocol would not be applicable in case there is a bond for the good behavior. Otherwise, the bypass could be accepted as submitted or provided in the consent section. So up to section 490 of BNSS, we are quite clear on the subject. In class number 2, I will initiate from section 491 of BNSS. See you in the next video. Till then, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.